What is going on, guys? Josiah LaRue here. Yesterday Apple had a press conference and we're here to talk about it. So let's go! So yeah, today we're going to be talking about some of the big things that Apple talked about in their press conference, including Health Kit, HBO Go, a new MacBook, and the iWatch. So let's talk about it. So first off, Apple talked about the Apple TV, how, it's kind of a little bit of an underappreciated box, but that they keep filling content into it, I think kind of to justify the fact that they haven't really updated it in several years, but they released some pretty big updates that really kind of make it worth it. First of all, they partnered with HBO, and now you can get HBO Now. What is HBO Now? Well, HBO Now is pretty much the HBO package minus the entire cable subscription. So you can have access to all their shows, including Game of Thrones and all their other big ones, and all the movies and everything else that comes with an HBO subscription for only $14.99 a month, right now exclusively on an Apple TV. Now I'm sure that HBO is not going to be exclusive to Apple for very long. They'll probably start partnering with other boxes as well, Roku, Amazon, etc. But the fact that you don't have to have an expensive cable package, you can just pay $14.99 a month to watch your Game of Thrones and everything else right on your Apple TV is pretty amazing. Top that off, if you buy an Apple TV now, it's only $69.99. So now for only $70 instead of $100, you can get an Apple TV box, which already does everything, streaming from any Apple device or sharing any content or whatever on your network, along with Spotify, Hulu, Netflix, all those other ones, and now HBO Go, and now HBO Now. You really have a wide variety of content, and it really makes that box even more valuable. So way to go, Apple. That really, I think, is going to breathe life back into your set-top box. Second thing I talked about is Research Kit. Now, they've already released Health Kit a while ago, which is designed to work with fitness apps and your iPhone to collect health data or whatever, and then also to help share that with a physician if you wanted. But this is Research Kit, and what Research Kit is taking Health Kit a little bit further, in that they partnered with app developers and with medical research universities and labs or whatever in order to create a better way to track illnesses or whatever. For example, Parkinson's disease. Now that affects the gait of a person as well as their vocal cords. So partnering with HealthKit, you can simply talk into the microphone of your iPhone and recite some words on the screen, and it accurately listens to you, and it can kind of diagnose like how far along you'd be in Parkinson's. Also, just walking with the iPhone back and forth with a few steps records your gait and figures out how far along you are as well. And then this all can get sent to your doctor, and that way you don't necessarily have to go in for the checkup. It's not necessarily going to replace anything, but it allows the doctor to get more accurate tests out in the field. So while people are walking and doing their daily lives, it's a way for them to check up on the patients. They also did something with asthma, where they could check inhaler amounts while people are out on the go with like Bluetooth inhalers, cross-referencing that with areas where they know there's more pollutants or allergen or asthmatic creating substances. So it's a way for them to integrate Apple technology, which a lot of people already have, with your health, and then to be able to send that to your doctor. But the cool thing is that you have complete control over all data that is collected on the device, and you get to tell what is sent to your doctor, and Apple, or so they say, never sees any of that data. So that's pretty cool, and it's really pushing the medical industry forward in a pretty easy way using technology that people already have, both the doctors and the patients. And finally, the two huge showstoppers of this whole event, the new MacBook and the iWatch. I keep saying iWatch, it's not the iWatch, despite what everything else is with Apple. It is the Apple Watch. But first, let's talk about the MacBook. Yes, it literally is called a MacBook, and where does it sit? Well, it kind of sits below the Air, and yet almost in between. But not a MacBook Pro. So what is it? Well, it's a 12-inch MacBook Air, kind of. It looks like a MacBook Air, seen here. It weighs only 2 pounds. It is fanless. It has a brand new keyboard and touchpad, and it has a very substantial battery life. So how did they do this? Well, they used stronger anodized aluminum. They cut it very, very thin. The panel, which has an amazing 2300 by 1440 pixels, in a 12-inch display is only 0.88 millimeters thick. Then you combine that with a newly designed keyboard, which instead of having the traditional X, which is actually has like weird butterfly ones, so it just compresses down slightly, so it's a shallower key depth, and from what people are saying, it has a little bit slightly different tactile feel, that you have more responsiveness across the surface of the key instead of the edges being, kind of wobbly as you've seen on most Apple keyboards. That allows them to create the whole keyboard in a shallower pan. And then the trackpad, still a giant glass trackpad, but it does not click down. Instead, it just registers down presses with 4 kind of pressure points in the corners, and then it uses haptic feedback, vibration motor underneath, to let you know when you've clicked. So how do you right click? Well, they call this gesture force touch. What you do is pretty much push hard, and the harder you push, once you break the click part, it goes into the force touch part, which then, integrating with, I'm assuming, a new OS X update, registers that as a right click and then pops up the appropriate contextual menu, or for the Apple apps, natively just does it. So say you're gonna select something and then force click, it automatically copies it, and if you click somewhere else, it'll paste it. Or if you right click in an iBook, it'll automatically look up the dictionary definition or whatever. So it tries to natively assume what you're trying to do there and just do it for you, making it a little bit more intuitive. I'm not sure how I would like a MacBook that has no right click, being as I do use that a lot, and particularly in certain applications you kind of really need a just right click. But if they can probably integrate it that you just press harder and it just right clicks automatically, that might actually be interesting. So how is this thing powered? We have the option of a 1.1 or 1.2 gigahertz or even 1.3 gigahertz, turboing up to about 2.5 gigahertz in the respective turbo boosts, Core M processor. Now, the interesting thing about this Core M processor is that it's a fairly small chip while still being powerful. It sips only 5 watts of power, and because of that low power consumption, it can be fanless. That's right, this new MacBook is fanless, so that allows them to get even thinner because they don't have to have that metal heat pipe and fan assembly. It's just completely fanless, and then they just put a layer of anodized copper filament to just radiate the heat up into the entire rest of the aluminum enclosure, and then it just kind of spreads the heat out that way. That was the interesting thing. They made their entire logic board with the processor and everything only about this big. To put that in perspective, on the MacBook Air, which I have, the flash RAM itself, just the hard drive, was about this big, and the whole logic board is about that long, because you have to have the RAM, the logic board, the chip, the heat pipe going out or whatever, so it was a lot bigger. So the way that they did this was just compressed it all down by using low power technology, more integrated circuits, and just compressing it all down. So what are the specs in this thing? Well, it comes stock with 8 gigs of RAM, can't upgrade that down or can't upgrade that higher or lower, it's just stuck at 8. You can get 256 or 512 gigs of flash, but you have to buy that at launch. It has HD 5300 graphics, 802.11 AC dual channel Wi-Fi, and Bluetooth 4.0. It has dual speakers, dual microphones, and a 4-pole headphone jack for microphone and line out audio. It has a battery life that they say is going to last all day, with about 9 hours of heavy web use and about 10 hours of listening to music exclusively or heavily. So the battery was also an interesting design because of the way that the MacBook naturally tapers to a point up at the edge. They actually layered it, so in the back area it's pretty thick, and then it layers down to a thin point so that they could fill up most of the entire lower case with battery. So that was pretty cool. But probably the most stunning thing was the absolute lack of ports on this thing. How many ports does it have? 2. One for your inputs and outputs, and one for your headphone jack. What do you mean by inputs and outputs? They switched to USB Class C. What is USB-C? Well, USB-C is a new USB standard that allows high volumes of data and power sent over a universal flippable cable. So it looks like a lightning port, only instead of being solid down the middle, it's open so that the laptop part sticks in like this. So what does this offer? Well, it offers the kind of flexibility to have the device be extremely thin because you only have one slot. But on the other hand, it forces you to buy tons of adapters. Do you want to use a USB hub? Got to buy an adapter for that. Do you want to use VGA or HDMI out? Got to buy an adapter for that. If you want to do anything than just power your device at the time, you got to buy an adapter to split it out so you can have power and whatever else in. Want to have Ethernet? That's also an adapter. So Unfortunately, I think Apple's rushing the game here. We're not to the point where we're completely wireless yet. We are still, while being very wireless centered, you still need USB, whether it's for flash drives, external hard drives, printers, whatever. You still sometimes need to plug in a USB drive. You still need to connect an external display oftentimes. If you're traveling and want to use your MacBook as a presentator, now you gotta get an adapter just to be able to show off media content. And oftentimes you want to have it plugged in while you're doing that media content so you're not draining your battery. So now you gotta get an adapter like that. Apple is going to be selling these adapters, but at a premium. For $79.99, you can get an adapter that has a USB port, the power input, and an HDMI or VGA. You got to have two different ones, a VGA model or an HDMI model, depending on what you want. For $49.99, you can get one that just has USBs on it, another $30 for an Ethernet one, and if you want to buy another external power adapter, that's another $79.99. So yeah, the USB standard, while being cool, and I definitely think is the future, I don't think we're ready for it yet. So Apple, I think you provided an amazing product, but you provided it too early. Well, I know Tim Cook talked a lot about motivation and innovation in this conference. I think that this MacBook is just a little bit too early. We're not ready to completely cut the cord yet. And while you can do most everything wirelessly, not everything, and the fact that now I need to carry around a bunch of adapters in my bag along with my laptop isn't really going to make me spring for this thing. And the price isn't cheap either. It starts out at $12.99 and goes all the way up to $15.99, depending on what hard drive you want, 256 or 512, and up from there, $15.99 if you want to upgrade the processor as well. So this thing ain't cheap. It's cool, but it's certainly not cheap. And finally, let's talk about the Apple Watch. Now, the Apple Watch is pretty exciting, and they just kind of reviewed it and hyped people up for the coming launch. So first of all, there's going to be three watches: the Apple Watch Sport, and the Apple Watch Edition. I know they couldn't have just made it simpler, but the Apple Sport's going to be the low end for more active users. The Apple Watch is going to be the stainless steel, more mid-level premium, and then the Apple Watch Edition is going to be the really super uber premium, being as it's made out of 18 karat gold. Now, that 18 karat gold is not cheap, starting out at $10,000 and going up from there depending on what bands you want and sizes you want. On the flip side, the Apple Watch Sport Edition is going to start at $349.99 and go up from there depending on sizes and bands. And then the Apple Watch Edition is going to start at about $550. And just the regular Apple Watch is going to start at about $550 and go up from there depending on bands and sizes. The cool thing is you can flip bands. The cool thing is you can buy different types of bands for your watch after you've already purchased it and kind of jazz it up. So if you have just the sports band, the plastic one, you can swap it out for a metal one, say if you're going to a more fashionable event, and pony up a little bit extra money, and you can swap the band so you still have the hardware, but then it just looks nicer as a watch. So that's kind of cool, but it certainly does come at a price, with the plastic band starting out at $50, the stainless steel bands going up to about $120, and the woven steel mesh going up to about $175. So they certainly aren't cheap for just linking material. So yeah, these Apple Watches, while very cool, are going to be certainly very expensive. Overall, I'm pretty hyped for it. A few other things they talked about: it's going to be a very personal device, with the fact that you can send people distinct like drawings or your heartbeat even, which I'm not sure is kind of cool or creepy. It's going to be very accurate within like milliseconds of the international standard clock. So of course it's pulling this data down from the internet, but it's going to be a very accurate timepiece. They say it's going to have 18 hours of battery life if you're just kind of using it in standby mode, about 6 hours of battery life of very active, like heavy use or whatever, 4 hours if you're using it for like phone talking, which yes, you can answer your phone on your watch, just like the TV shows. And overall, yeah, it's going to be a very cool device. Personally, I think I'm going to be getting the Sport Edition 38mm with the black band, and maybe if I have some money later on, get the stainless steel, nice looking band for special occasions or whatever. But overall, I'm really looking forward to the Apple Watch. It's a tight integration with the already pretty heavily existing infrastructure that I have in iOS with my MacBook and my iPhone, and everything is going to go really well. And being as I've already tried the Misfit Flash and the Razer Naboo, I'm looking for something more. That being said, there are going to be some drawbacks to the Apple Watch. First of all, it doesn't need to be charged every day, so it's not going to track my sleeping time, which means I'm still gonna probably have to keep carrying the Misfit Flash, which is okay because this thing is really lightweight. I hardly ever feel it, and it can be a backup timepiece along with tracking my regular sleep time or whatever. While the Apple Watch is going to be more of my notification center, replacing my Razer Nebu. It's going to be a timepiece, it's going to be more functional, it's going to look like a watch, act like a watch, but then also do fitness tracking, do notifications, allow me to respond to texts and phone calls or whatever else. So it's going to better integrate with my phone than this thing does, and I think that that's going to be the best of both worlds. Something lightweight, which you can just keep using whether you're running or swimming or doing whatever, a lightweight app mobile tracker, something like this, and then you're going to have your Apple Watch for day-to-day use. The Apple Watch is billed to be something of a timepiece and then some. It's definitely going to be a fashion statement. It's going to say, look at this, I spent money on this watch. And that's part of what Apple's trying to do. A watch is meant to show off that you have a timepiece and to show that you have kind of class and style, particularly the higher ends like Rolexes or whatever. That's a fashion statement and a statement in and of itself. So that's what the Apple Watch is supposed to be, along with being practical, functional, and an everyday part of your life. So overall, I'm very excited to see what the Apple Watch can do for me. Now the Apple Watch is going to be available to pre-order on April 10th and should arrive sometime in the neighborhood of April 20th, 24th. So I'm really looking forward to this already. So yeah guys, hope you enjoyed the episode. Let me know in the comment box down below, what did you think of Apple's event? Did you watch it live or have you seen it? Are you planning on getting an Apple Watch? I know I am. And what about the new MacBook? Do you think it was a success to launch a product that is so lightweight and so interestingly spec'd out? I mean, it has a very good battery, it has a great screen, but it also has no ports. So would you buy one? Let me know in the comment box down below. As always guys, thanks for watching. Remember you can check out last week's episode right here and what I talked about right here. Hit that like and subscribe button down below so you don't miss any of my new content, and I'll see you with a new video on Friday. Peace!